Welcome to the pre-Diwali celebrations at the Coffee Con Show at the Emerging Lawyer, powered by the Emerging India Forum TIF and a tech partner, Prime Infotech Solution. Theme is the Fractional GC Advantage Gaurav Gupta on modern legal leadership. In today's business world, where growth depends on navigating an increasingly complex regulatory landscape, legal strategy has become a cornerstone of success. Few exemplify this better than Gaurav Gupta, founder and managing director of BridgeCounsels LLP. With over 20 years of experience across law firms, multinational corporations, and now as a leader in fractional general counsel services, Gaurav has seen law from every angle: litigation, corporate advisory, compliance, and international business transactions. From steering M&A deals to guiding startups and global enterprises alike, his journey is a testament to the evolving role of lawyers as both risk managers and business enablers. Today, we sit down with him to uncover the wisdom behind building bridges in law and business, and we also come to know Gaurav as a person. So, welcome, Gaurav, to today's celebration episode. So, let me explain you. There will be three rounds: professional journey, personal journey, and a rapid fire round where you will meet the hot seat. And here's your book, your inspiration, Legal EI 101, which will be autographed and sent to you. So, let's begin.
Yeah,
Friend of line,
thanks a lot.
yeah. So, friend of line, Amir Virani, host at Coffee, legal tech evangelist at Prime Infotech Solution, author of 15 books. So, my first question for you, Gaurav. You have worked with top firms, MNCs, and now built your own practice. What inspired the leap into founding Bridge Counsels? My first part. And how the journey has been, second part. And what's the story behind your law firm, Bridge Counsels? So, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Amir. So just before I delve deep into what inspired me to start which councils, what I wanted to say is that when you're spending considerable amount of time working with top tier law firms and also working with multinational companies in their legal departments, basically you start noticing two things very clearly. First of all, you see a sheer value of structure, systems, and processes that these institutes and these experiences bring into the legal work. Everything is polished, watertight, scalable. But second, you also see the gaps, the places where traditional law firm models don't serve today's business very well. For me, the leap for founding Bridge Councils wasn't just a single moment of epiphany. It was a gradual recognition that clients' expectations from lawyers were evolving faster than the profession itself. I saw basically startups, MSMEs, foreign companies with lean legal departments, and mid-sized businesses who were not able to have a full in-house legal services accessible to them, but they basically did need somebody who could give them a strategic legal thinking and just not mere templated contracts. So basically, I saw companies struggling to find the external counsels who could seamlessly integrate into the business decision makings rather than staying at arm's length. And I also, over the period of time, I also saw that founders basically who had amazing growth perspective and who basically thought that they could do wonders, but because of lack of proper legal advice and some counsel who could actually guide them on day to day challenges, they were struggling. So basically, the Bridge Councils was born out of this gap. So when I was working in my previous organizations, I was working with them for last 20 years, 13 and a half years, and prior to that, I was working with the top law firm. So I had an experience of working both in-house and a legal, and as a lawyer in a law firm. So when I was working in Bentley, I mean, for last 2 years, I was also thinking that I should be doing something more than just being a legal advisor or a general counsel for a MNC. So I basically wanted to create a platform where legal advice was just not limited to billable hours, but about outcomes and about parachuting in a deal and disappearing. But it was about walking alongside the business throughout their journey. So the name Bridge Council itself reflects this philosophy. Basically, the aim of finding bridge councils was to bridge the gap between the formal world of law and ambitious world of business. Uh, there was a also a personal driver in this situation. At some point you realize that working with top firms gives you prestige, but not always freedom. So freedom of innovative uh, thinking and the freedom to experiment with service models and to build on a team culture which is collaborative instead of hierarchical. Basically, I wanted to design a practice that felt entrepreneurial in spirit, where lawyers are encouraged to be a problem solvers rather than being a risk spotters. Of course, leaving the security of the big names isn't very easy, but at the hindsight, I think it was only a logical step because clients today are looking for trusted advisors who basically understands their business requirements, who are able to flag the risks at the right moment, who are also able to help them navigate the day-to-day challenges as a legal advisor and not as people who are only advising them on a transactional basis. So basically, I wanted to see bridge councils as a fractional GC, which is just not a cost for the company, but a platform which would typically help organizations scale their legal operations and manage their day-to-day operational risks.
Wow, beautiful. So let's build up the conversation. Uh, Fractional GC is still a fairly new concept in India. How do you see it reshaping the legal services landscape?
Okay, so I personally believe that fractional GC model is disruptive. It's disruptive in the sense because it challenges two legal standing assumptions. Number one is that only large, well-defined companies basically expect to have a full-fledged legal strategy, and that lawyers must either be inside counsel or outside counsel with nothing in between. So typically, when you see in an Indian setup, most of the startups, growth stage companies, MSMEs have a same dilemma. Whether they think that they are too small to justify hiring a full-fledged general counsel, but at the same time, they think that it's too complex to survive on an ad hoc external advice, because for the companies which are growing, they would continuously be needing legal advice, strategic advice, to be able to identify the risks, because timely identification of risks is very important. How you're able to ascertain or anticipate a risk in a particular transaction, advise the top management whether to go ahead with the transaction or not. So that would not come from uh, a lawyer who is only advising on a transaction or who is only advising on a specific matters. So a need to have a strategic fractional general counsel is something which I feel is a requirement of an industry. Now, basically, in my perspective, I see this concept of fractional GC reshaping the Indian legal industry, specifically where we're providing fractional GC services as a model in three ways. First of all, it's going to help giving access of high quality legal strategic advice uh, to the startups, MSME at an early stage. Earlier only unicorns or MNCs could afford an in-house general counsel or a general counsel team who would be sitting them at the table during board meetings, help design compliances, frameworks, or anticipate regulatory risks. Now, from a startup perspective, if you see now, even a Series A startups can, plug into that brain power with fractional of the cost by having a fractional GC who is with them on board throughout their growth journey. Now, this, in my view, levels the playing field and helps younger companies to scale responsibly, taking into consideration all the legal risks and having a strategy in place which will basically help them grow over a period of time till they reach a stage where they are at an pre-IPO or an IPO stage. Now, secondly, the lawyer's role becomes more embedded in the business these days. Firms which operate on a transaction, you call them for a deal or a crisis. But a fractional GC, I think, is slightly different because they are proactive. They integrate with the with the leadership team, and they understand the products, the services the companies are providing, the expectations of the investors, and also certain specific nuances. So this typically means that a legal department stops being a necessary obstacle and starts being somebody who is able to give a competitive advantage to the firm. Thirdly, the fractional GC model also creates a hybrid ecosystem of legal talent, because many lawyers, especially those with in-house backgrounds, don't want to be basically tied to a single industry, and the fractional GC model gives you that flexibility to be able to provide legal services to different organizations dealing with different areas of products and services, thereby also expanding your growth perspective and giving you a perspective which basically you might not have experienced working with a particular industry, right? Now, I think from in the current situation, India is a particularly right place to start the fractional GC services. I think the timing is perfect because our ecosystem has rapidly expanded growth, and regulatory frameworks are becoming increasingly complex, from things like data protection to fintech compliances and global investors. They're basically demanding more and more governance. Basically, because of this, I think the fractional GC model is preferred, and it's suited basically with the purpose of bridging the gap between the global quality legal thinking of the companies, basically that are still building their foundations. And I feel that in next decade, this model is going to basically blur the line between the law firms as well as the in-house teams.
Wow. So let's my next question. From fractional GC perspective in a M&A deal, how do you approach balancing speed with legal precision?
I believe, see, mergers and acquisitions, when you're dealing with them, you are dealing with them as an in-house counsel. You're dealing as a lawyer, you're dealing with M&A transactions, either uh, from a transactional perspective, where you're working on the documentation part, and as an in-house counsel, you're basically managing the legal affairs and ensuring that the interests of the companies are protected. Now, typically, mergers and acquisitions are basically very complex transactions, where commercial urgency often collides with the need for a meticulous legal scrutiny. So, as a in-house counsel, and as a lawyer who had basically advised the clients on M&A transactions, I personally feel that the only way to balance speed with precision is to adopt an approach which is structured and which basically prioritizes risks, relies on efficient processes, and leverages cross-functional coordination. As a fractional GC, the first step is always being able to identify what is the scope of the entire transaction, and how, as a fractional GC, you would be able to help the organization manage an M&A deal. I think it is important to identify the strategic drivers of the transaction, whether it's market access, technology acquisition, or a talent consolidation. And once these priorities are defined, the legal team, as a fractional GC, can focus on diligence areas, which may have an impact on the valuation or post deal integration. Secondly, I personally believe that adopting a tiered diligence methodology is very important because not all risks warrant the same level of scrutiny. Say, for example, in a cross-border deal, there could be certain regulatory approvals which are required from various regulatory authorities. Text structuring may need a special attention, and certain legacy employment matters would have to be addressed by a fractional GC because fractional GC is able to understand the culture of the organization, what are the expectations of the founders, and so as a fractional GC, you are not only outlining these risks, and but you are also excluding timelines to manage those risks without compromising on the exposure of the organization. Third, I think discipline uh, in this entire process is very crucial because M&A deals often slow down not because of legal complexities but because of poor interdepartmental coordination. So there is a possibility that the legal department of an organization is not speaking to HR, finance is not speaking to tax. You know, so as a fractional GC, I believe that I could play a very important role in bridging this gap by making sure that all the important stakeholders of the organization are at par as to what is required from them because in my role as a in-house counsel for MNC, I was involved in couple of M&A deals where there was a need for a coordinated effort to ensure that every organization within a company knows what's happening, right? So that those experiences have taught me that if you as a fractional GC would want to facilitate a deal for an organization, you have to basically spend time in analyzing the situations and just not chasing the paperwork. I think equally important is a proactive communication, with the contemporary advisors to identify the red flags early because that's very important. If certain red flags say a regulatory approval is not required, is identified, or a need for a regulatory approval is not required to be identified at an early stage, and that becomes a potential red flag for an M&A deal. So the entire deal will go into jeopardy, right? So it's very important that as a fractional GC, you're able to identify those issues and then advise the management uh, to be able to address those issues. Also, as a fractional GC, because I have experience working with in as an in-house role and with multiple law firms, I would also ensure that the cost of the company is protected. The company doesn't land overspending or underspending on a particular area. So having choosing a right counsel, right law firm who can advise the company at a deal stage is very important because as a fractional GC, you are just not acting as a transactional lawyer, you are also acting as a lawyer who wants to save the cost of the company, right? So, with a blended experience of an in house counsel and as a law firm lawyer, I personally feel that I would know which is the right law firm or who is the right hire, lawyer to be hired to ensure that the legal cost of the company is also protected. I think another important aspect is the early integration planning, because many unseen challenges emerge not during the diligence but after the deal closes. Post deal integration is very important, and I think a general counsel or a fractional GC plays a very important role in closing these deals. You know, things like employee transition, regulatory reporting, IP migration, or customer consent. All these things require somebody who has an experience of working as an in-house counsel and as a law firm lawyer. So I think this blend will ensure that all these are flagged during the transaction phase and responsibilities are allocated with timelines. And basically, this will allow commercial terms to move quickly while legal safeguards remain intact. Another aspect basically is basically that speed should never come at expense of governance. I firmly maintain the philosophy that reputational and regulatory fallout come, they are often overlooked, and just with the purpose of ensuring that the deal is closed quickly. There is a pressure from founders, there is pressure from promoters, no, no, close the deal, but I think that's not the right approach. There has to be a balance in basically ensuring that the deals are closed properly versus also ensuring that the risk appetite and the complete regulatory approval has been achieved for closing those deals. And I think to that extent, fractional GC plays a very important role in balancing the expectations of the business and also ensuring that the legal issues and regulatory issues are properly addressed, thereby clarifying on the priorities and processes when it comes to proactive risk allocation.
So, Gaurav, having spent over a decade at Bentley Systems, what leadership lessons from that corporate role influence how you run your firm today?
So I think my experience in Bentley as a India legal counsel was transformative uh, prior to joining Bentley, I had worked with law firms like AZB and Partners, and I had also done secondment with Boeing. So that combined experience of working in-house and with a law firm basically was able to help me understand the requirements of setting how to run the legal operations. And when I joined Bentley, we didn't have any lawyer in India, so I had to literally make my presence felt. But I think over a period of time, as I understood the business requirements and I understood the sales needs, I was able to develop good relationships with various stakeholders, was more of their legal enabler rather than being somebody who is obstructing the legal transactions. And that entire process, being able to identify the risks at the right time and be able to have right strategies to mitigate those risks, I think that helped me in being able to take a decision that going forward I should be able to start a fractional GC firm like Bridge Counsels, who would be able to help the organizations navigating those risks and also have a growth trajectory in place.
So, Gaurav, in your view, what are the top three legal risk businesses in India underestimate?
I think from a risk perspective, what there can be a lot of issues, but I think the top three would basically be uh, when the businesses take decisions, whether at a startup stage or at a later stage, without involving their legal counsels, because many councils, many founders would basically imagine risks as a clause, but in reality, they don't understand whether a particular decision is something which requires a legal review, or basically it requires an analysis from the lawyers or a law firm. So I think to that extent, being able to, from a founder's perspective or from an owner's perspective, to be able to know whether this is a issue which requires a legal input is very important. And I think the second would be the risk of uncodified governance, where culture replaces compliances, because typically Indian companies, especially growth stage ones, often rely on trust culture in place of documented governance. And board decisions happen on WhatsApp, and ESOP grants are given on a spreadsheets, and related party transactions get rectified informally. So it might work until an investor is actually coming in, or an auditor or a regulator actually identifies a red flag. So I think to that perspective, I believe that at Bridge Councils we call for fix the governance, starter stack, board template decisions, logs, policy matrices, and I think governance must scale without affecting the businesses. But these things are not something which need to be ignored. I think
Uh,
the third issue obviously is that when you're scaling and basically you have to also identify that scaling requires you to have a right systems in place, make sure that your IP is protected, make that your contracts are properly drafted, negotiated, and the transactions are closed by identifying and closing those risks. So I think I mean, I do understand that the businesses need to have contracts and deals done, but those deals should be done not at an expense of you know having any impact on the company's risks.
uh. So let's go maybe down a lane, Gaurav. What's been the most complex deal or transaction you have handled? And what did it teach you about business risk?
So I think for me, whether when I was in a law firm and when I was in Bentley as a legal counsel, I think every deal used to be a challenging one because you as a lawyer would learn new experiences and try to make sure that those experiences are used for firms' growth or for companies' interest protection, right? But I will give you certain examples. So when I joined Bentley. So we Bentley as a company used to deal with a lot of PSUs, lot of government contracts. So prior to me joining Bentley, there was a general perception amongst the sales organization or members of the company that you cannot negotiate the government contracts, and government contracts are out of scope of negotiations. You can't even touch that. So I particularly remember that when I joined the company, I was told to close a transaction, which had an arbitration clause, which typically required the arbitration to be settled through arbitrators which are appointed by the PSUs. And for me as an MNC, that was a non-starter because it obviously has a lot of risk on the company if something goes wrong. And the company sued and the arbitrator passes an award against the company. Obviously, the company's operations would be hampered. So as a lawyer, I put my foot down. I told the salespeople, no, we cannot agree to this provision. We have to negotiate, and eventually, it was very difficult initially because I think the PSUs also were not able to accept these changes. But eventually, we were able to close that, and we had that arbitrator appointed as per a fair term, and I think that kind of kick-started my journey in negotiating the commercial terms as a commercial lawyer at Bentley.
Wow. So, Gaurav, how do you see AI and legal tech transforming the work of lawyers over the next decade?
So I think one thing we have to realize is that AI is here to stay. I mean, that's something which cannot go away. Now, basically, I think we are past the debate whether AI will actually change the legal profession or not. I think it already has. What is now happening is much deeper because AI is changing how lawyers think, how lawyers approach the clients, and how they engage with them, and how legal work creates business value. So when you're sitting inside a law firm as a in-house team or working as a fractional GC, like we would typically do in rich councils, the direction is to basically ensure that technology is not slowing but is speeding up businesses, right? So I think from a law firm's perspective, AI is helping law firms m- you know change the way the due diligences are done, the way legal researches are conducted, and the real transformation is cultural because young lawyers no longer, I feel, want to be dug in for hours in the data room and extracting the clauses. I think AI is able to do that. So that also doesn't make lawyers redundant. There's a perception that AI is making entry level lawyers redundant, but I think if you're able to use the AI technology in a better way, I think you can use it to your advantage rather than being a disadvantage. And I think from an in-house perspective, also AI is able to unlock growth. Again, change the internal workflow processes, how each department is talking to the other document in terms of approving a transaction, in terms of having, flagging the right clauses, whether it's tax, HR, compliance. And so I think if AI is to some extent able to manage those workflows properly, so yeah, I think it's here to stay, and it's only here to help us grow rather than struggle as a lawyer.
Wow. So, Gaurav, what role does cultural understanding play when advising foreign companies entering India?
So I think when you talk about cultural understanding, India is a unique country in the sense that for foreign companies when they're entering into India, it's very important for them to understand the culture, whether it's a compliance culture or whether understand the Indian legal framework, and also be able to understand the statutes, the current case laws, and the regulatory guidelines. I think what is very important is how the business is conducted and how the decision making processes are arrived, and how the governance practice and even risk tolerances are perceived by various organizations. I think the first dimension is communication and negotiation style. I think from an India's perspective, negotiations often involve multiple layers of stakeholders, from family members to senior management to advisors who may not formally appear in documents. So the need for understanding the consensus building is very important, and how you're able to navigate those communications between the organizations with, and the external person is very important. I think the second dimension is the governance cultures, because when many foreign companies are coming into India, they underestimate the difference in cooperative governance practices between India and their home jurisdiction. So I think it's very important that for me, I would rather advise foreign clients to understand the statutory requirements of India, and also highlight and understand what are the unwritten rules that would shape the governance in practice.
Wow. So, my last question for your professional journey round, uh, who has influenced you or has been your mentor, role model from the legal world?
So when I joined the law firm, the AZB, obviously I had a lot of seniors who helped me understand the commercial transaction, the corporate transactions, and similarly, when I joined Bentley as a legal advisor, I had mentors, so, my seniors who taught me the nuances of in-house counsel. But for me, my biggest motivator has been my father, and he being somebody from a legal profession with 40 years of legal experience, legal career, earlier as a high court lawyer, and then subsequently as a high court judge and chief justice of 3 states. I think the way he used to conduct himself, the way he would uh, you know, uh, handle the legal situations, whether it's litigation or court matters, the way he would articulate things, the way he would communicate with others. I think that is something which inspired me to be a good lawyer. Maybe he was more focused on the litigation, but I'm more focused on the corporate and commercial law. But to me, he has been my role model throughout, and he will remain my role model throughout the life.
Wow. So let's go to the next round and understand Gaurav as a person. Tell us about your family and your formative years. Briefly, you have shared about your father, but let's hear in detail.
So thanks. So I am basically born, brought up in Jammu. I did my class 12, till class 12th I was in Jammu, and then I later on moved to places like Calcutta, Ranchi, Shimla. I obviously traveled with my father, with my family, till I finished my education. But because I was traveling into multiple jurisdictions, I got an exposure of meeting new people, understanding different cultures of different states, and that kind of helped me uh, become a good person in terms of being able to understand. the day-to-day issues. I think from a family's perspective, my wife, she's a doctor, and I have one daughter. My sister also is a lawyer, and we generally are a very close-knit family with cousins and relatives meeting often, in festivities and in all good times. So yeah, I'm a family person who loves to meet friends and relatives on a regular basis.
Wow. So, which is a hobby which instantly relaxes you after a long day?
So I as a child, we would obviously land up playing a lot of sports like cricket, table tennis, etc. But maybe 5 to 6 years ago, I got into golf as a sports,
Mhm.
and I think I really love that sports because that not only relaxes you, but it also gives you an opportunity to talk to new people, make new friends over next 3 to 4 hours of golf. And I think that is something which really relaxes me because you land up playing with different people in different beautiful golf courses. You're close to the nature, and you're also able to communicate with different people at different times.
Wow. So, what's a childhood memory from Jammu that still makes you smile?
Oh, there are plenty of memories. Right from playing cricket in gully cricket with your friends and your cousins to having fun times in festivals like Diwali and Holi was amazing. As a child, I was always very excited about playing sports. Me and my cousin, younger cousin, brother, we would actually land up playing cricket for hours and hours in the night, either play day cricket or evening cricket. So it used to be for us, playing was an amazing fun, and it still remains. But there are so many memories, especially the memories with your childhood friends, the memories with your grandparents, the memories where you basically go out with your family and to, because, I belong to Jammu, so I always got an exposure of going to the most beautiful cities in Kashmir. So that early exposure of traveling with my parents was something which I think has remained a very integral part of my life even till date.
Wow. So, if your friends had to describe you in 3 words, what would they say?
I think I'm somebody who is somebody who is very easy to approach. I personally believe that I'm a good listener, and I always want to help other people. Uh, when it comes to any of their personal issues or any professional issues. So I think I'm a person who always would like to help others.
Wow. So, which is that book, movie, or song which has left a lasting impact on you?
Oh, plenty of them. So, as a kid, we were, uh, in the late 80s when we had actors like Amir Khan coming with movies like Qyamat Se Qyamat Tak, and then Salman Khan on later on coming with movies like Maine Pyar Kiya. So there were so many amazing childhood. Because I am a movie buff. I love watching movies, and that has been there right from the beginning. But I think for me, one of the most amazing movies as a child or even now is a movie of Top Gun, where Tom Cruise was one of the leading actors. And that I think one thing best about that movie was how the movie involved a person with so much of talent to be able to uh, commit to a friendship, to be able to navigate internal battles within himself and come out successfully. It was a great movie, great music, but I think it also was very inspirational for me. uh,
Wow. So, let's make you a tour guide. Suppose someone want to visit Jammu and Kashmir. What are the places to check in and food to have?
Oh, so Jammu Kashmir is full of wonders, full of surprises. So when it comes to food, so me being from Jammu, obviously so there is an amazing Jammu Dogri delicacy. Whether it's ambal or I mean, there's so many of things, so many of delicacies, right? Right from the Kashmiri Wazwan food to things like rajma, chawal, dum aloo. There's so much to explore in a place like Jammu and Kashmir, right? So, I mean, for everybody who comes to Jammu, food is an amazing luxury. And, whenever people visit Jammu and they leave Jammu, they leave with amazing experience. When it comes to, recommending a place, I think the entire J&K Valley is beautiful. Jammu has its own, landscape, and Kashmir, as you know, is a beautiful place, right from amazing valleys of Pahalgam to Gulmarg to beautiful valleys in Leh. I think each and every part of Kashmir is beautiful. So I would recommend everybody to go to Kashmir, enjoy the place, and enjoy the gift of nature.
Wow.
Is a person who is very simple, down to earth person who always wants to help others, and somebody who is a very uncomplex character and easily approachable.
So let's put you in the hot seat, Gaurav. Rapid fire round. Your go-to comfort food.
Uh, Butter chicken,
Your favorite color.
blue,
Dream travel place.
New Zealand,
Best piece of advice received.
remain grounded,
Your favorite cuisine from Jammu and Kashmir.
Kashmiri Wazwan food, Rista Gushtava,
Wow. Okay. Uh, tea or coffee to recharge.
coffee anytime.
Yeah, the coffee sure. Let's read. So you did well, Gaurav, and here's a book, which will be your Diwali gift. So, as the conversation with Gaurav comes to a close, one thing is clear: law at its best is not just about contracts and compliance, but about building bridges that enable businesses to thrive. From M&A negotiations to guiding startups with agility, his journey shows the power of blending legal acumen with business foresight. Gaurav's story is an inspiring example of what it means to adapt, innovate, and lead in today's dynamic legal ecosystem, especially the fractional GC. So, like that, there are 500 plus coffee speakers who have shared their professional, personal journeys, insights. Subscribe, implement in your life, and we meet with another speaker over a cup of coffee. So, take care. Thank you.